It was my best friend's birthday, and we had decided to celebrate at a popular nightclub in the heart of the city. The club was known for its loud music, crowded dance floor, and long lines, but we were determined to have a good time. We arrived around 10 p.m. and the line was already wrapped around the block. After waiting for what seemed like hours, we finally made it inside. The music was pumping, the lights were flashing, and the dance floor was packed. We ordered drinks and hit the floor. As the night went on, the crowd started to thin out and the music became less energetic. I was ready to call it a night, but my friend wanted to stay for a while longer. As we were walking around the club, we noticed a group of guys standing off to the side, eyeing us. At first, I didn't think anything of it, but as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. My friend was too drunk to notice, so I kept my eye on the group of guys. They seemed to be watching us and following us around the club. Finally, I decided to tell my friend that we should leave. As we were making our way towards the exit, one of the guys from the group grabbed my friend's arm and pulled her back. I turned around and saw him shouting at her, but I couldn't hear what he was saying over the music. I tried to intervene, but before I knew it, all of the guys had surrounded us. They started pushing us around and shouting at us, calling us names and threatening us. I was terrified, but I knew I had to protect my friend. Suddenly, a group of security guards appeared and pulled the guys off of us. We were escorted out of the club and told to leave. As we were walking away, I turned around and saw the group of guys staring at us with hate in their eyes. We started walking down the street, trying to put some distance between us and the club. But as we turned a corner, we heard gunshots. We ducked into an alley and watched as people started running out of the club. The sound of sirens filled the air and we knew we had to get out of there. We ran down the alley and finally made it back to our car. We drove home in silence, both of us shaken by the night's events. It wasn't until the next day that we found out what had happened. There had been a shooting at the club, and several people had been injured. I couldn't help but think that it could have been us if we had stayed just a little longer. From that night on, I made a promise to myself that I would never put myself or my friends in danger like that again. The memory of the nightclub outing will always stay with me as a reminder to stay safe and be vigilant.
I've worked as a bouncer at this nightclub for 5 years now, and I've seen my fair share of crazy nights. But the one that stands out the most was the night that everything went wrong. It started off like any other night. The music was pumping, the drinks were flowing, and the dance floor was packed. I was stationed at the door, checking IDs and making sure everyone was following dress code. As the night went on, things started to get rowdier. I had to turn away a few people who were clearly too intoxicated, and a group of guys tried to start a fight with another group on the dance floor. But we managed to defuse the situation, and everything went back to normal. Around midnight, a group of 4 guys came up to the door. They were all dressed in expensive suits and seemed to be having a good time. I checked their IDs and let them in. I didn't think anything of it until a little while later when one of the bartenders came up to me and said that one of the guys had been harassing her. I immediately went over to their table and told them that they needed to leave. The guys were clearly not happy about being asked to leave and started arguing with me. I stood my ground and told them that they had to go. That's when things got physical. One of the guys pushed me, and I stumbled back. I tried to grab him, but he was too fast. Before I knew it, they were all punching and kicking me. I managed to hold my own for a little while, but I was outnumbered. I knew I had to get out of there before things got any worse. I managed to crawl my way to the door, and as soon as I opened it, I saw the flashing lights of a police car outside. The police had been called by one of the other bouncers, and they quickly apprehended the guys. I was taken to the hospital with a broken nose and a few broken ribs, but I was lucky to be alive. The aftermath of that night was tough. I had to take some time off work to heal, and the owners of the nightclub were understandably worried about the incident. But we all learned something from that night, that we can let our guard down, even for a moment. It was a reminder that anything can happen at any time, and we have to be prepared for the worst. Looking back on that night, I realize how lucky I was. It could have been much worse, and I could have lost my life. It was a wake-up call for all of us, and it made us all more vigilant and aware of the potential dangers that come with working in a nightclub. But we're still here, and we will continue to do our best to keep everyone safe.
I had been waiting for this night for weeks. My friends and I had planned to go to one of the biggest nightclubs in the city. We had spent hours getting all dressed up and were ready to party. I was feeling excited and nervous at the same time. This was going to be a new experience for me. As soon as we walked into the club, I was struck by the loud music and flashing lights. The dance floor was packed with people dancing and having a good time. My friends and I made our way to the bar and ordered some drinks. We then joined the crowd on the dance floor and started moving to the beat. As the night went on, I began to notice some strange things happening around me. People were pushing and shoving each other, and some were even getting into fights. I tried to ignore it and continued dancing, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that something bad was going to happen. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. Everyone stopped dancing and looked around, confused. Another bang followed, and then chaos erupted. People started screaming and running in all directions. My friends and I tried to make our way to the exit, but the crowd was too thick. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as we were pushed and shoved from all sides. Then I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, you." I turned around and saw a man pointing a gun at me. I froze, my mind unable to comprehend what was happening. The man then turned and fired at someone else, and I took the opportunity to run towards the exit. When I finally made it out of the club, I collapsed on the pavement, gasping for air. My friends were with me, and we held each other tightly, thankful to be alive. The police arrived soon after and cordoned off the area. We learned later that day that there had been a shooting inside the club, and several people had been injured. The main target of the gunfire that night was a woman who resembled me. When I saw her picture flash across the TV on the news, the events of that night began to replay in my mind. The photo of the man who committed the crime was also shown, and it was the same man who had pointed his gun at me. I was able to conclude that the man had thought I looked like the victim, his ex-girlfriend, and when he pointed the gun at me, he only had a split second to realize I wasn't her. It was a sobering thought, but one that I would never forget. I could have easily been the victim of a shooting simply because of mistaken identity. Despite my fear, I refused to let this experience control my life. I still go out with friends, but I'm much more cautious now. I'm always aware of my surroundings and never let my guard down. I hope that one day we can live in a world where we don't have to be afraid to go out and have a good time.